Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Big at the Back podcast, coming halfway through this massive double game week 29. Matt, how are you doing?
I am good, thanks. I am still testing positive for COVID, so I am still housebound. But other than that, I can't complain too much. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm still testing negative despite my wife being positive for the past 3 or 4 days. I feel like I'm a bit of a ticking time bomb, to be honest. I know. What was the time lapse between you having it and Ellie having it?
It was, so I tested positive on the Monday. She tested positive on the Thursday. So, yes, 3 days later.
Cool. Yeah. So Julie tested positive on the Saturday and it's now Tuesday. So maybe I'm missing it, maybe I'm super lucky, or maybe it's just a very, very late occurring COVID.
Fingers crossed you're not getting it, because we're on a countdown to a wedding. So
yeah, really need to make that. Well, on a slightly more positive note, fantasy football, there is loads to talk about over the last few days or so.
I thought you were going to say about how Cheltenham starts today and I can lose loads of money betting on the horses.
That too. If anything, we'll come to that and get your best Cheltenham tips. I just pick a funny name if it's got like 8-1 odds and I go for it. Have you got loads of free bets as well on 365?
365, Paddy Power are all doing free bets, yeah. So it's might as well. It's a little bit of fun, isn't it? But my tips involve copying people off Twitter. So
nice. That's actually more eloquent than me. I just look at the numbers. Oh, that's 8-1. That would do.
I like that. I like those odds.
Yeah, I just look at the odds, and then if I win, great. If I lose, then no harm. So, fantasy football. Before we go too deep into the nuances of horse race betting, let's start with how we're getting on, because we're halfway through the game week. How are you doing in terms of score?
Middling, I think, is a pretty tame way of putting it. So I'm currently sat on 63 points with a 4-point hit, so net 59. Salah captain, which I think pretty much everyone in the world has done this week, looking at it as effective ownership. But other than that, it's been the defenders really carrying me through. Robertson and Trent, obviously both with the clean sheets. Rudiger and Cancelo all with clean sheets, and Ramsdale as well. So big at the back pays off. What can I say? Red Arrows at the moment down to current 96k in the world. So a slight red arrow, but not much at all. Down about 1,000 overall ranks so far. What about you?
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know how you've got a red arrow, because I'm very similar to you in terms of team structure for this week. And I've got a slight green arrow. So we'll go through my team. Similar to you, I've got big at the back is saving me, but actually it's just Ramsdale, Trent, Rudiger and Cancelo. I don't have Robertson there as well. I have got 8 Nuri and 0 points after his 9 the game before. It's just ridiculous how little he's starting at the moment. Across the mids, Salah captain, obviously, but his effective ownership is like 217%. So I actually wouldn't mind if he's not starting the next game as a precaution, or not starting versus Arsenal from an FPL standpoint. Kulu and Kane teaming up for a goal, which was nice, and Lacazette with 6 points as well that I didn't necessarily expect. So that's where I'm at the moment. I'm on 69 points minus 8 because I had nice. Yes, it's like minus 8 points, so 61 overall because I took 3 transfers and an 8-point hit. So I still have, I think, 7 players to go. So I'm feeling very good. I'm feeling like I will probably get over the 100-point mark, providing there's no extraordinary circumstances for this week. So it feels like a good week overall.
Yeah, I've got 9 left to play still. The thing that really hasn't helped me this week was, despite the fact they were playing Chelsea and lost 1-0, I had St. Maximin and Willock. Willock was sick, so didn't play at all. So Maximin was on the bench. I'm really hoping that they can do the business against Everton in their second game of the week, which at the moment, that looks likely. So, but yeah, still got a lot of players to play, so I'm hoping I can really turn that red arrow into a green arrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's actually a nice place to start if we're going through the games then. So let's talk about Newcastle versus Chelsea. I watched this game, all 90 minutes of it. Did you get to see it at all? Or I can't remember if you were texting me at the time.
I had it on, but it was the same time as the West Ham game, so I was giving the West Ham game much more attention. But all I can say is, Kai Havertz, you're welcome. I have single-handedly revitalised your career. Since my tweet saying he's not very good at football, he's had 4 goals and an assist in 3 games. So, and of course, I don't have him in my team. So,
Of course not.
I don't know if I should stick with the current tactic or if I should bring him in and watch him stop scoring.
I would love you to bring him in and him stop scoring, because I have no intention of bringing him in myself. Chelsea can consider themselves very, very lucky. They really, really, really should not have won this game. It was a really nice finish by Havertz.
Lovely.
But there was a stonewall penalty that wasn't given against them. It was as clear as the Everton-Man City one a few weeks ago. And I think Newcastle, if you watch the game, were actually the better team of the two. We were saying last week how they turned a corner. They looked really strong against Chelsea, and I'd be very surprised if Everton managed to get anything against them later in the week. Thoughts on Newcastle? St. Max coming off the bench is back as well?
Like you say, really, and we've been saying this every week now, the turnaround has been incredible. It's their first defeat of this calendar year in the league, which is obviously impressive enough as it is. But when you consider that it was a Chelsea side that are in form, they really took them to the wire, and it took a last-minute goal. Great touch and finish from Havertz. But yeah, St. Maximin coming back is a big bonus as well. It gives them another option, and he's a real X factor. So I still probably wouldn't be looking at their defenders as much as they are a danger from set pieces. But going forward, they've got some options: Fraser, St. Maximin, Willock, your mate Chris Wood. So yeah, get him in.
My mate Chris Wood and my best mate St. Maximin. But we'll come on to who my real best mate is later in the podcast, I'm sure. Chelsea, from that standpoint, they haven't got a game in the upcoming blank game week. But as much as I didn't like Rudiger picking up a needless yellow card at the end, another clean sheet for them. And big at the back, looking like a really strong and useful tactic as we move into the post-game week 30 fixture run.
Yeah, I think so. I took Reece James out this week after his knock, which obviously paid off because he didn't play at all. But I brought in Doherty, who's picked up 1 point so far. So I needed to make up those 3 points for the 4 point hit that I took in their second game. But yeah, I think I'll be moving back to him after 30. Yes, he's got a knock, but they blank this week. Then we've got the international break as well. So the next fixtures aren't until early April. So hopefully that gives him enough time to recover. But like you say, them at the back so far, since they returned after all their blank game weeks, look really solid defensively. And their next few fixtures doesn't make you think that they'll be conceded many at all. Yeah,
agreed. I am almost certainly going to be going huge at the back, doubling up on Chelsea defence, looking at taking 1.5 out in the midfield and upgrading Aït-Nouri to Reece James at some point, probably post-game week 30. So we'll get to my transfer plans in a bit, but that's the thoughts in my head at the moment. We also touched on, at the very beginning of the pod, Everton, and we'll wait and see.
Watch this space. There's still a long way to go.
So I didn't actually get to watch any of this game. Did you? Did you actually see the highlights or any of it?
I've seen the highlights, and so from Match of the Day, which doesn't really paint it in much glory because I think there was one highlight from the first half, which just goes to show how bad of a game this was. But again, they're sort of defensive frailties it was from a set piece, but the ball was recycled and delivered back in for Cody's header. Richarlison had a couple of chances. He hit the post. He looked like the most likely person to make things happen. But I know they've got 3 games in hand, but they're now level on points with Watford, who are in the bottom 3. So it's really looking bleak for them at the moment. And yeah, I don't think anyone's looking to move any Everton assets in anytime soon, despite the fact they will be having doubles.
Yeah, and if you look at the fixtures they've got coming up as well, we were speaking about it on WhatsApp the other day. I think they've still got Liverpool, Chelsea, United, Arsenal all to play over the next few games. So even though they've got 3 extra fixtures, their games are really looking very tough. I think we said in the last pod, if they can't get 4 or more points from the Wolves and Newcastle matches, they're in real trouble. Well, they can't. So if they don't pick up a win versus Newcastle, they are in true disaster territory as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, their next 5 announced fixtures, obviously this will probably change at some point in the next couple of weeks, are West Ham away, Man United at home, Liverpool away, Chelsea at home, Leicester away. So you could easily see a situation where they don't get any points out of those if they carry on their current trajectory.
Yeah, I wouldn't back them to draw a single one of those. Maybe West Ham if Antonio's actually out, but I don't see them picking up any points during that run whatsoever.
And the only hope they've got, and I'll come on to this in a bit, is Leicester with their set-piece vulnerabilities.
Well, let's move on to that then, because, actually, something on Wolves to say. There's not much on Wolves to say, really. They continue to be solid and ticking over. They could lose 4-0, but then they'll get 3 clean sheets in a row. Their unpredictability has become predictable. Anything to add on Wolves at all?
No, they seem to be in that same sort of form Spurs have been in recently, where one week it will be fantastic, the next week will be awful, and there's no in between really. So, yeah, they you can probably have at least one Wolves defensive player in because every other week they're probably going to get you something. So I've got Sarr, but I know a lot of people have got Cody. You've got Aït-Nouri, who obviously is frustrating you with not playing, but I think their defensive assets are the way to go. Jimenez, obviously, I've still got, but
yeah, I think you need to be getting rid of Jimenez. He's not delivering, and Wolves aren't delivering going forward really at all.
He's delivering more than Brozier, though, isn't
he? Yeah, unfortunately, he's like $500,000 more to be fair, so you'd expect it. But yeah, he's delivering more than Brozier. Looking at the other games, then. So we haven't spoken about them almost at all on the podcast because I find them boring to speak about, but Brentford are worth talking about, and we've neglected them a little bit. They won 2-0 against Burnley. Ivan Toney with another goal. He's got an XG over these last 3 games of 1.7, or over these last 5 games of 1.72, and he scored 7 goals. So those penalties are really, really racking up for him and really, really inflating his stats. But what are your thoughts on Brentford at the moment? Now Ray is back as well. Are they a good team to invest in at either end of the pitch?
I'm still not looking to invest in them. I think it's very key to point out that their last 2 games that they've won have been against Norwich and Burnley. So you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt. They've had a couple of penalties. So I wouldn't be moving heaven and earth to get anyone in. Toney's now an option potentially. Like you say, penalties, and Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager, says that Toney is the best penalty taker in the world. So there's that. But next week they do play in 30. They've got Leicester. So this leads on to my potential new tactic of every week just make one transfer and bring in whoever takes corners for the team that are playing against Leicester. So get Christian Eriksen in this week.
I was going to say Christian Eriksen with a really, really nice cross to set Toney up for the goal. Is there anyone in Brentford defence that you would look at investing at potentially?
I think you could potentially look at, I don't know, someone like Pinnock or Janssen because they're just an option. I think if you're going to go for a Brentford defender, they're all much of a muchness. There's no real standout. So I wouldn't personally. If you look at the sort of XG over the last 4 games, it's fairly standard. It's like 1 goal against per game, so they're a little bit tighter at the back. But again, you've got to look at the teams they're playing.
Yeah, and I think the next team to come on to really is one you just mentioned because it's Brentford's opponents next week. It is Leicester, because oh my goodness, they cannot defend set pieces. That was a horrendous one to give away for them. Aside from that, though, Iheanacho starting, not getting a return, but looking promising. Was there anyone else, or is there anything else to say about Leicester? I'm really struggling with them.
No, me too. I think they didn't really create too much. I think Arsenal look really good at the moment, so that's obviously a real factor in that as well. But their inability to defend corners is just, I don't know what they're working on in the training ground, if not that. Like that corner from Martinelli whipped in, it was just a ball into the near post and Partey had too much space. So you're not going to be looking at bringing in any defensive assets, and then who have they really got going forward other than your best mate? So are you bringing him in yet?
I'm not, no. And just because the forward options aren't a players that I need to invest in for this upcoming blank, but I'm considering it. Maybe after 31, maybe.
Take a hit, bring him in.
I'm looking at it. It's an option. Cool. Next game to go through is very significant when you consider the results of the Everton match, which is Leeds 2, Norwich 1, and a huge win for Leeds. Gets them 3 points closer to safety, just when Everton and Burnley around them have lost. So I know it's Norwich, but Leeds getting the win here. Rafinha getting an assist. How he's not got more from this game is amazing. He was top across all players for expected goals over underachievers. He has an XG of, I think, 1.32 or something like that just for himself. So Leeds, I think, won this 2-1, but actually were better value than that.
I agree, yeah. Rafinha hit the bar twice, once from a free kick, once from open play. He is probably the one, like, they do play in 30 as well. So I'm thinking about bringing him in on my free hit, purely because if anyone's going to make something happen for Leeds at the moment, it looks like it's going to be him. They've had an XG over their last 4 games. So the last 3 game weeks, 4 games of just over 7, but have only scored 2 goals in those games. Both of those were against Norwich. So they're making things happen. They're just not finishing them at the moment. Maybe Bamford coming back will help them out there.
Yeah, I think Bamford coming back is the right time for him to be coming back. Then again, he came off at half-time and then they scored 2 goals. So I'm not sure if he's having an immediate impact, but I think having him back means they'll have someone that can start putting the ball in the back of the net, which I think Leeds have been sorely missing. Their XG for the last few games has been much, much better than it has been earlier in the season.
I think it's only a matter of time before things start clicking for them. So obviously new managers come in, making things happen. They've got a slightly tough fixture with Wolves in 30, but like we've discussed, Wolves are very hit and miss at the moment. And then they've got Southampton and Watford, so you feel like they're 2 really big games.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of which, Southampton and Watford did play each other, and a 2-1 win for Watford away against Southampton, who have started doing their thing of capitulating for 4 or 5 games before turning it around and being awesome for 4 or 5 games. I didn't actually watch this match. I saw the highlights and match of the day. So what were your thoughts around it?
Well, it looks like Southampton shot themselves in the foot, really, especially that first goal, trying to ply it around at the back. Got away with it once and then did it again, and then they got punished. Cucho with both goals for Watford. So maybe he's one to watch, but I don't think I'll be bringing him in anytime soon. But yeah, like you say, Southampton really sort of going through a tough run at the moment, losing 4-0 to Villa, 2-1 to Watford. So it's hard to see where that's come from.
Yeah, I think Southampton, much like Aston Villa, maybe less so like Aston Villa, but also much like Wolves, are one of those teams that have 3 or 4 really good games and then 3 or 4 very bad games. So that very inconsistent mid-table form. And I think their lack of depth in the squad, particularly in midfield, is starting to hurt them because they're relying very heavily on James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, although El Yunusi with a couple of goals in a couple of games has taken me by a bit of a surprise. But like Brozier, I know there's been debate going around FPL Twitter on why everyone loves Brozier so much, because obviously he's very cheap. But and I think he's a good player. Obviously, he scored against West Ham in the FA Cup, a very nice goal, but he just seems to be really under-delivering in the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah, believe me, I know. I've owned Brozier for this whole period and I've felt the pain of it. A really fun game to talk about next. And we'll come to West Ham and Liverpool's game at the end. But let's talk about Manchester United 3, Spurs 2, because it's only Cristiano Ronaldo's 2nd ever hat-trick for Manchester United. And what a time to get it.
Yeah, it was Ronaldo remembering how to play football again. I still think he was sort of... Spurs didn't make it easy for him, but they also didn't make it hard for him, especially the first goal. Eric Dyer stood off too much and just let him shoot from distance.
But Spurs... I'll jump in there because I think that's how Spurs play, right? So that first chance for Ronaldo it had an XG of like 0.02. It wasn't a big chance or a likely chance to go in. And the way Spurs defend is they are more than happy for teams to have those low XG chances. It's what they're very good at is stopping the high XG chances. So I think that kind of chance you can, okay, it's Ronaldo, you shouldn't give him that much space, but that's how Spurs have been playing. They're more than happy to give the low XG chances so that they don't concede the high XG chances. Then if someone pulls a worldie,
Yeah, but I think you've got to defend the player as much as your system. So it's like you say, it's Ronaldo. If anyone's got the ability to do something like that, it's Ronaldo. If you give him 3 or 4 chances like that in a game, there's a good chance one of them will come off.
Yeah, agreed. Worth noting as well, no Bruno, Ronaldo just suddenly pulls it out the bag and starts looking like Ronaldo. I just don't think they can play together. I don't know if it's a personality thing. I don't know if it's a system thing or if they just operate in the same space and get in each other's way, which it certainly looks like they have. But they just can't play together. I think one of them needs to be on the bench for United to get anything because United they won the game thanks to Ronaldo's magic, but they really didn't look like a good team at all.
The thing is, Ronaldo and Bruno played together for Portugal as well, so you feel like they must have a way of making something work. But like you say, it was a bit of a scrappy affair. Ronaldo really pulled them through it. The header for the third goal was just proper old school centre forward, throw your head at it, get everything you can behind it. But their XG for the game was less than 1, so it just goes to show they didn't really create much. Sancho got himself another assist. Fred with another assist as well. I think he's got more assists for Man U in 2022 than any other player. But yeah, and we can talk about Harry Maguire until the cows come home because that was brilliant.
Yeah, it's always fun watching United and seeing Harry Maguire lining up for them. And I'm saying that as a Liverpool fan. He's a terrible defender.
It was like Paddy Power's tweet about Harry Maguire against Spurs. It's like the stoppable force meeting the movable object.
Lots of time for that. Speaking of Spurs, then I've got Kane, I've got Kulusevski. I know you've got Doherty as well. I think I said Doherty felt like a trap, and this was why, because defensively Spurs really cannot be relied upon. How do you feel owning Doherty after that match?
To be honest with you, I don't own Doherty for any defensive. Like a clean sheet would be a bonus. He's there more for his attacking output, which we've seen in the last few games prior to Man U. So it was always a risk for him to come away with nothing. But you've also got the flip side of that coin. He's fairly cheap. I'm banking on him getting something going forward rather than keeping clean sheets because I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. Well, they've got more of a chance of keeping a clean sheet against Brighton, but Brighton can make things happen. Obviously, they play my boys West Ham in 30, so I hope they don't keep a clean sheet there.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton we'll come on to in a moment, but just touching on that as well, if you're going to go for a Spurs defender, I think it's got to be Doherty because Reguilon looked dreadful when he played and looked really, really poor when given the chance.
Got an assist, though.
Got an assist, but I certainly don't think Conte will be keeping him in the side.
I think he's more of a rotation risk as well because you've got Sessegnon on the left as well. I think Doherty is, at the moment, more nailed than either of the left backs because I don't think Emerson's really providing him any competition.
Yeah, I agree. We've got 3 more games to rattle through. So Crystal Palace versus Manchester City, 0-0. Cancelo with 9 points should have had 2 assists and a goal at a minimum. He probably should have had 20 plus points. But owning Cancelo this game, considering he had about 25% expected ownership in the top 100k, which is absolutely bonkers to me. Why would you sell the best team's best player? So, yeah, really happy owning Cancelo. But this game just seems like Manchester City were incredibly frustrated the whole thing. Palace defending well, their goalkeeper getting, I think, 6 saves. But what did you manage to catch any of it? I know you were watching Peaky Blinders yesterday, so priorities. But what were your thoughts on it?
I was watching Peaky Blinders, but I did have this game on my phone as well. So, and then I watched the whole second half as well on the TV once I'd watched Peaky Blinders. So, best of both worlds. But yeah, it was Palace defended fairly well overall, as well as you can do against City. City's XG was still 2.37, so they got the chances. They made things happen. They just couldn't bury them, which doesn't often happen. But Palace have kept 2 clean sheets against City this season. I think they're only like the 4th side to stop a Pep Guardiola side from scoring across a Premier League season. Man United actually did it last year. But that's just goes to show they put their bodies on the line. They did what they need to do. They did have a couple of chances going forward as well. But Man City were wasteful. Cancelo was the one to own, really. I think Guaita got 2 bonus points for his saves and Stones got the 1. So it was all about the defensive players in this one from an FPL standpoint. And the interesting thing for me is Guardiola didn't make any substitutions.
Yeah, is he perhaps saving for the week? I'm not sure. I'm not sure why that was the case. But again, they had a really high XG, so you'd expect them to create something. I guess he was just happy with how it was going.
Yeah, I mean, Cancelo hit the post, like you mentioned. Bernardo Silva missed a couple of big chances. Yeah. So it was just one of those games, really, where things don't quite come off. But it definitely makes the title race a lot more interesting because at the end of the day, we're about FPL, but we're all football fans. So there's one thing we want. It's an interesting title race.
Yeah, if Liverpool beat Arsenal on tomorrow, in fact, then it's only 1 point between the two teams, and suddenly it's a very, very interesting title race. Looking at that April fixture between the two sides, and it's very tough to call at the moment. A couple of games to talk about then. So which should we do first, the Liverpool match or the West Ham match? I'll let you pick.
Well, seeing as we're on that subject of the title race, we might as well go to Liverpool. I think kicked off the weekend in style. Obviously, you as a Liverpool fan, Salah with a goal, picking up a bonus point as well. Matip turning into like prime Kevin De Bruyne with his through ball for the first goal, and Luis Diaz almost being killed in the process of scoring.
Yeah, how is that not a red card? Absolutely ridiculous. I don't want to hear anyone say Liverpool again, considering some of the red cards that haven't been given out against us this year. You had that one, you had Harry Kane's earlier in the year. It's absolutely ridiculous how much we've been screwed out of decisions this year. It reminds me a bit of West Ham last year, in fact, at the beginning of last season. Looking at the game, though, I don't think Liverpool ever really got out of second gear. I think it was there were a few moments as the game opens, but after that, Liverpool were very comfortable. Salah had a really poor game by his standards. What he's doing getting a bonus point, I've got no idea. But I thought he was, by his very high standards, really poor. I think Diaz, again, looks amazing for Liverpool. But I always felt like Liverpool, if they wanted to, could have gone up a gear, but they just didn't need to against a very poor Brighton team at home.
Yeah, I completely agree. Salah wasn't at his absolute best, but he didn't need to be. So I think maybe they've got a little bit left in the tank for what is a huge game tomorrow night against an informed Arsenal side.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good game to watch as well. Brighton at home, we've spoken about it previously. Their home record is abysmal. They've got Spurs coming up. I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope for them against an informed Harry Kane. Well, Kane and Salah both getting goals, but neither really playing particularly well. But I would still definitely back Kane to get a few against that Brighton side at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a Kane owner, you must be licking your lips at the prospect of that one.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait for it. So looking at the last game then, which is West Ham 2, Aston Villa 1. You won some money on this game and your team won. So I bet you're a very happy boy.
Yeah, not too bad overall. Obviously, two big things for West Ham in this game. Antonio and Cresswell both came injured. So they're being assessed this week. Obviously, we've got a big game on Thursday night against Sevilla. But the real story was Andrei Yarmolenko coming on for the first time since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Got a fantastic reception when he warmed up, when he came on, and then scored the opening goal. And he completely broke down. And what a moment that was. Even the Villa fans applauding as well. And it was a really well taken goal. And the thing that really struck me is we actually looked a lot better after Yarmolenko came on over Antonio. We didn't look like we were offering much for Antonio. His first touch was poor. Yarmolenko's movement was better. He pulled the defenders around more. So it just really changed the game in our benefit. Ben Rama with 2 assists as well. Not that I'm looking to bring him in at any point, but it's good to see him coming back to some of his early season form.
Yeah, I was going to say we all had Ben Rama at the very beginning of the season, but then he just kind of petered out. So if he can put something together, I think he's an option for the last 5 or 6 games or so.
Yeah, the other thing from this game, Ramsey got the goal and it was a really well taken finish. But Coutinho was sort of, Rice really marked him out of the game and did a really good job on him, which I think maybe we'll see something similar in game week 30 with potentially Thomas Partey or Granit Xhaka trying to do something similar, because I think if you can keep Coutinho quiet, you'll really keep Villa quiet overall.
Yeah, Jacob Ramsey, seconds for midfielders across the game week with 40 points in the bonus points calculator. So he, even if you look at all the underlying stats, he played really well throughout. And I think he's certainly one to consider moving forward. But Villa's fixtures aren't wonderful, even after the blank game week. So it depends. I think Coutinho is still the one to have, just because he's got that set piece side, and not every defensive midfielder in the league is as good as Declan Rice. I certainly don't think Thomas Partey or Granit Xhaka are, for instance. So I think Coutinho could still really get something against that Arsenal side, and I think he's still a good own moving forward. Digne, after 10 minutes getting injured, he's the work. We started off singing his praises, being really happy about Digne. There's just nothing else to say. I'm getting rid, and I can't wait to get rid over the next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, very frustrating one. Thankfully, I've already got rid of him, so I haven't got to make that transfer to move him out. Obviously, Matty Cash has performed well over the last few weeks, so there's that option. Does feel like a bit of a sideways move, though, especially considering their fixtures coming up. So it does look like a good option to move that defensive option somewhere else. But yeah, he might come back fit after the international break, but with their fixtures, I think it's time to get rid.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, looking forward then, looking ahead, there are 8 teams that play in the next game week, and it starts Friday evening. So it's Wolves at home to Leeds, Villa at home to Arsenal, Leicester at home to Brentford, and Spurs at home to West Ham. So only 8 teams playing, loads and loads of blanks. And a lot of people I've spoken to are looking at a free hit for this week, just so they can get 11 players out. I think I'll be able to get 8 or 9 players out, considering the injury to Digne, considering everything else going on. I'm very comfortable with that because we've both done our free hit drafts for this week. And honestly, I'm really uninspired by my free hit draft at the moment. So as I've only got 1 free hit left, it's not even in consideration for me. You've got 2 left, so you're in a slightly different position, right?
Yeah, my chip is active, so I am ready to go. Still tinkering a little bit here and there, and we'll see how these next few fixtures pan out, because obviously we've got Arsenal still to play, we've got Spurs still to play, who both play in 30, so we'll see how those games turn out. That could change my mind a little bit, but I'm fairly settled with the sort of broad structure of the team. I think if you're going at the moment, you've got to go 3 Arsenal and you've got to go 3 Spurs. The rest is a little bit more fluid.
So just talking about that, if you've got 1 free hit left and you're considering playing it for this week, maybe you can only field 5 players, for instance. It's worth noting that, here's a little quiz for you, Matt. There's only 5 players that play in game week 30 that are averaging 5 points or more per week in FPL. Do you want to have a guess at who they are?
At 5 points or more per week.
Mm-hmm.
Kulusevski's got to be one of them.
Correct.
Is Kane averaging that many or not?
No. So Kane's not.
Son?
Son is, yes.
Oh, now we're really getting into the bottom of the barrel, aren't we? Saka won't be that high, will he?
No. So the other 3, so it's Kulusevski and Son, then it's Coutinho, Bowen, and Ramsdale. They're the only players that are averaging 5 points or more per week that play in game week 30. So I don't think this will be a really high scoring week. Therefore, I'm really reluctant to take any hits for it. If I can get 7 or 8 players out comfortably, then I just won't take a hit. And I may even roll the transfer depending on who's available. But at the moment, unless I want to play a long term, I'm certainly not going to be taking a hit to bring him in on 30.
I think that's the point with this week, really, isn't it? It's a blank, but it's not there's no standout fixtures where you're like, I need to target that fixture. The two the informed side are Arsenal, but they've got Villa, who are also fairly good and fairly solid at the moment. So that's a tricky one. Spurs play West Ham. West Ham in general up their game against Spurs and do all right against them. As much as I say that, Kane has got a very good record against West Ham, though. So he's the one that you'd bring in and captain on a free hit for me.
Yeah, so we've both put free hit drafts together. So let's talk about what we've gone for and who we've got. Goalkeepers, I've got, no surprise, I've got Ramsdale and he'd be starting. Then I've got Raya on the bench.
So at the moment, I've gone for Sarr with Meslier on the bench just because he's playing. I was torn with Ramsdale, or do I go with those points out? Because I need 3 Arsenal players. So at the moment, I've got 3 different Arsenal players, but this is one of the coin flips for me at the moment. I could bring in Ramsdale, but it will mean getting rid of someone else.
Interesting. Okay, well, who have you got across the defence then?
So my 5 defenders overall are Kieran Tierney, who would be the Arsenal player that I would drop if I was getting Ramsdale in. Soyuncu, Cody, Cash and Cresswell. But the 3 starters are Tierney, Soyuncu and Cody. Cresswell picked up a knock, so he might not even be fit. So I'm waiting to see how that pans out before I probably move him out for someone else.
Yeah, see, I've gone similar in that I've got 3 players the same. Cresswell would be there if he hadn't got a knock. So because he's got a knock, considering it's a free hit draft, I've gone for Cody, Cash and Tierney, the same as you. Then instead of Cresswell, I've gone Pereira for Leicester. I think he's starting and he's a better option than Soyuncu, I would think. And then Saiss for Wolves, just, again, lack of options from those teams at the moment. Across the midfield, I expect we've gone a bit different as well. So Son and Kulu are the obvious picks. You just need to be trebled up on Spurs if you're on a free hit, and Son and Kulu are the way to go. Then I've stuck with Coutinho because I think he is a wonderful footballer. Saka, again, he's been Arsenal's standout player. And I've gone Christian Eriksen because that Leicester defence is so bad at pieces.
I like that. I do like that. I'm tempted with Eriksen as well. But at the moment, like say, Son and Kulusevski in there straight away. I've also got Saka. My other 2 are Rafinha because, again, I think if anyone's making things happen at Leeds at the moment, it's him. And Wolves could be a bit leaky. We don't know. And my 5th is Harvey Barnes at the moment. I think he's been impressive. Brentford can be gotten at, so that's why I've gone for him instead.
So Rafinha is the one I was really, really thinking of, but Christian Eriksen just seems like a more fun pick, and I'm not.
It does. I'll give you that.
I'm not on a free hit, so this is hypothetical for me. But Christian Eriksen just seems a little more fun. I like Harvey Barnes actually. I would probably have him over Coutinho, being completely candid. I think that's a really fun move as well.
I did have Coutinho in originally, but I just thought if I have him in the squad, I'm probably not going to start him anyway because Arsenal look quite good at the moment. So that's why I didn't go with him in the end. Yeah.
3 strikers then. Harry Kane's got the armbands. Who are the other 2 you've gone for?
The other 2 for me.
This is a trap question because I will hate you if you don't say the right name.
I'm sorry, he's not in there. He's not there. There is an option for him to come in still, but there's one that he would come in over. The one he's not coming in over is Lacazette. He's in there. I think he's been really impressive lately. He's picking up assists. He's that link up amongst that Arsenal sort of front 4 at the moment. And the 3rd at the moment is my boy Jimenez.
Oh, no. If you're on a free hit, you do not want Jimenez on your side. So I've gone for Saka and Tierney, so I can't get Lacazette in at the front. So I've gone for Ivan Toney and Kelechi Iheanacho.
Of course you have. But yeah,
Iheanacho is a fun player.
But Leeds have conceded 9 goals in their last 4 games.
But Iheanacho is a fun player.
I tell you what, you've got the rest of the week to convince me. If you can convince me, I'll bring him in.
be ready to get a lot of YouTube compilations of Iheanacho's best goals. I do genuinely think he could be a really rogue pick, and he's a really fun player to own because no one else will own him. If you're on a free hit, I would really, really strongly advise bringing in Iheanacho. I think that's really, really fun. Just like Christian Eriksen. Ian and Christian, that sounds just like a fun free hit week.
The other thing to remember as well is obviously Leicester and West Ham both play on Thursday night as well, so that could change things if, depending on how they play, who plays, anyone picks up injuries or anything like that. So I won't be obviously finalising it until sort of Friday afternoon, as it is a Friday deadline. I hate it when there's 4 games and they're spread across 3 days this weekend.
Yeah, it's unbelievably frustrating. I mean, football every day is positive, but yeah, we can't really plan forward and plan ahead considering everything going on. So we've got the blank game week coming up this weekend, and we've got the fixtures coming up over the next few days. You and I will probably be back just after the Sunday games, really, Sunday night or Monday morning. Do you think that's probably the next time we'll do a podcast?
I would imagine so at this point. Obviously, that leads us into the international break, so it will be a little bit of a quieter couple of weeks. Maybe we'll even talk a little bit about the England squad that will be getting announced this week.
Oh, exciting. Yeah, we'll talk about the England squad, and we'll have some special episode ideas planned. It depends which one we do, but we could have a look into fantasy football legends, looking at kings of the game week over the season. There's a lot of ways we can go about it, so we will still be pumping out content. Remember, guys, to like and subscribe with the video, and to like and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever. It does really help with the algorithms. You can find us on Twitter at @BigAtTheBack, and you can find us individually. Our screen names are on here as well. Matt, I know you've normally got a few other things to plug as well.
Yeah, obviously, as Tom said, @BigAtTheBack on Twitter for us. We're trying to tweet as much as we can. It is just a load of random inane thoughts, like me saying that Kai Havertz is bad at football, and Tom misspelling players' names. Tom is at TomMadden92. I am at Higgins92. And you can also find me on the Pretty Bubbles podcast talking about West Ham as we go ahead to our second leg against Sevilla on Thursday night in a massive game, probably our biggest game of the season. But yeah, get involved with the conversation on Twitter. We'd love to hear your feedback as well.
And we'd love to hear, if you're on a free hit, what your squad's looking like, because it is a very, very open season for Game Week 30. So we'd love to hear from everyone what your plans are and what it's looking like, and what your chip strategy is afterwards as well.
Definitely.
Until then, good luck, everyone, over the next few games and the next game week. And we'll look forward to catching up with you straight afterwards.